Good evening and thank you for joining us for KREM 2 News at 5. I'm Mark Hanrahan.
Welcome everyone, I'm Whitney Ward. Our top story tonight: on this coming Tuesday, we will learn which counties in Washington will get to stay in phase 3 and which ones will have to move back to phase 2. And right now there is a strong possibility that Spokane County will have to go back to phase 2.
In order to avoid that, we'll need to meet one of two metric goals: either have fewer than 200 cases per 100,000 people over a 2-week span, or have fewer than 5 hospitalizations per 100,000 people over a 1-week span. So do we have a shot at that? Our Casey Decker crunched the numbers tonight.
In the last phase report, there was a pretty significant lag in the data. And last week, with some math, we were able to determine that if there was a similar lag in this report, Spokane County would definitely be going back to phase 2. But then we got some possibly good news from the governor's office. It looks like there won't be any lag in the data this time. They'll be incorporating numbers all the way up through Sunday. So in theory, at least, there's some hope we could improve our numbers and get ourselves under at least one of the thresholds required to stay in phase 3. So what exactly would we have to do for that to happen? Well, based on our county's population, here are the maximum totals we can have. No more than 1,045 cases between April 19th and this Sunday, or no more than 26 hospitalizations between April 26th and Sunday. As of today, we're at 1,243 cases and 18 hospitalizations, according to the Spokane Regional Health District dashboard. So when it comes to cases, we've clearly already failed that metric. Unless the data the state uses is significantly different from what the health district is reporting, there's no chance we meet our case rate target. As for hospitalizations, maybe we have some hope there. Between today and Sunday, we can't have more than 8 more hospitalizations. That's an average of fewer than 3 a day, and we haven't had a day with fewer than 3 hospitalizations in weeks. So it's highly unlikely. But if there's a prayer of staying in phase 3, that's where you'd find it. And again, all this depends on the state using the same data that the health district is reporting, which was not the case last time. And it depends on there being no lag in the data, which was also not the case last time. We'll learn for sure on Tuesday when Governor Inslee makes his announcement. Casey Decker, KREM 2 News.
And as Spokane County, as well as several others, both here in eastern Washington and on the west side, are preparing to roll back to phase 2, turns out that some venues are actually exempt from those tighter restrictions.
Ted Land from our Seattle sister station reports more now on who stays in phase 3 regardless, including the Mariners and the Sounders.
When the Seattle Sounders returned to Lumen Field earlier this month,
Oh, come on, come on, come on!
it felt like things were kind of getting back to normal.
I can't tell you how excited we are to be back. Even in an empty stadium, I can't wait till we can fill it up.
Fast forward a few weeks and health officials once again have some disappointing news.
Transmission is still increasing, and we're seeing a majority of our counties are seeing rising case counts, and that is of concern to us.
They're warning King and Snohomish counties could roll back to phase 2 as soon as next week. Restaurants and indoor venues are bracing for tighter restrictions.
So it'll be really exciting to see him play again.
But fans with tickets to an outdoor pro or college sports event can stick with their plans. That's because those gatherings are exempt from a rollback. They can stay in phase 3, allowing teams like the Mariners and Sounders to keep seating up to 9,000 people.
I think that those games have been so important to kind of building back this sense of normal, and that we will be able to return. So we're looking very carefully, and every action that people do has an impact here. This is one where when we do it together as a community, the numbers go in the right direction.
Youth school sports teams, however, would face tighter restrictions in phase 2. Fewer spectators would be allowed at a high school football game. Indoor basketball games are prohibited in phase 2, but teams can still compete outdoors or travel to a phase 3 county.
We'll keep you posted on what happens, of course. Well, in much of the country, vaccine doses now outweigh demand. But Friday, the White House COVID-19 response team announced that 55% of adult Americans have received at least one vaccine dose, and more than 100 million are now fully vaccinated. Health officials are working with social media sites now to reach the unvaccinated.
We still have way too much disinformation spreading on those sites, and it presents a clear and present danger, I believe, to people who need to be protected from COVID.
In a dramatic turnaround, California now boasts the lowest rate of COVID infections nationwide. This afternoon, the White House announced due to the high number of COVID-19 cases in India, travel restrictions will go into effect for people traveling to the U.S. from India starting on Tuesday. New this afternoon, a man accused of brutally murdering his ex-girlfriend accepted a plea deal today.
To count one, murder in the first degree, how do you plead?
Guilty.
That plea deal would put Anthony Fuerte now behind bars for 32 years. That's for the murder of 24-year-old Michaela Young. Final sentencing will take place later in May. Court records say the two were romantically involved. Young was found in a North Spokane motel with multiple stab wounds in February of 2020. Court documents show she had actually said that she was afraid Fuerte was going to kill her because he thought she had set him up to be arrested for a separate crime. Her family was in court today when that plea deal was read.
But this is a case that calls out for the high end. So I am going to impose 136 months in prison. I didn't hear you say you were sorry. I didn't hear you say anything. I didn't hear your family say they were sorry or they had any sympathy for this family.
Another man accused of killing his girlfriend was sentenced to just over 11 years today. Daryl Cloud entered an Alford plea for the death of Candy Feely. An Alford plea is a modified guilty plea in which the defendant doesn't admit guilt, but acknowledges he likely would be convicted if the case went to trial. According to court documents, Cloud dropped Feely off at the hospital unconscious with injuries to her face and bruises all over her body and then ran. Cloud had been arrested for domestic violence against Feely prior to the deadly attack. Cloud had also previously served time for killing his former middle school teacher back in January of 1994. He claimed at that time the teacher sexually abused him and eventually won a $250,000 settlement against the school district, which never admitted liability. A new campaign making it easier now for Washington homeowners to prepare for wildfire season. Today, Commissioner of Public Lands Hillary Franz launched the Wildfire Ready Neighbors campaign in Spokane County.
Tonight, Crime 2's Amanda Rowley shares exactly how you can get a free assessment for your home to make it resilient against wildfires.
The Wildfire Ready Neighbors campaign helps residents prepare for the upcoming wildfire season here in Washington state. That means residents can sign up for a free assessment of their property with experts. We're here in Elk and got to see what that assessment looks like.
Pine needles there on the roof, they could easily start the siding on fire. So that's your weak link up there.
Joe Dickinson and his wife moved into this Reflection Lake home 3 years ago. They have already made great strides in cleaning up the property. Today, they are learning what risk factors still exist near their home and how to best protect it from wildfires.
The nice thing is here is you have dirt, so there's not a lot that can easily ignite. But as we move over here, we can start seeing some pine needles accumulating. And one of the things, this is so close to the ground, the small amount becomes more critical.
Through the Wildfire Ready Neighbors campaign, people living in Spokane, Chelan, and Okanagan counties can register for this free assessment of their home. It's a collaborated effort between Washington Department of Natural Resources and community members.
I believe that every homeowner on the front line of these fires has the ability to take steps to protect their homes, protect their families, protect their neighbors, protect their communities, and maybe most importantly, protect our firefighters.
Sandy Bennett knows the importance of preparing a home for wildfires firsthand. Last year, her family was nearly evacuated during the Blanchard fire.
It was scary. I slept in the hammock that night outside because I wanted to know if the embers were coming.
Her family registered for the free assessment after already taking steps to clear away fire fuel close to their home in Chattaroy.
We had about 1.5 acres cleared, fire thinned, and so we thought we'd do pretty good. We only scored a 65% out of 100 because across the road from us, there's 100 acres of unthinned unthinned trees.
That just goes to show, even if you think you've eliminated all the risk factors on your property, the assessment may reveal areas still needing attention. In Elk, Amanda Rowley, Creme 2 News.
And you can sign up for this free assessment of your home by visiting wildfireready.com. We can also send you that link straight to your phone. Just text us the word READY to 509-448-2000.
Well, Bloomsday Worldwide kicking off today, and to celebrate, we thought we would send our very own Tom Sherry on a little field trip.
That's right. He is doing weather from a different location today. He's actually joining us from Doomsday Hill. And Tom, I'm assuming you've already ran up that hill, right?
You're assuming wrong, my friend. But normally the first Sunday in May, you'll find me trudging up this hill. And normally we've got the Vulture out here. I got to be careful. The Vulture is out here. We're actually standing in the middle of where the water station would be. And then, of course, as you look down here, Jeff's my photographer. I'm getting him bouncing around everywhere. But that normally across the bridge right there and then up Doomsday Hill here on Pettit Drive, you would see just throngs and throngs of people having a great time. Of course, Bloomsday's still going on this year, and we'll talk more about that. It's a virtual race, and it's going to be great, but we need to talk about weather, don't we? As you can tell by my cheap toupee, I'd never pay money for this, folks. The wind is blowing, so let's talk about that. We've had wind gusts to about 30 miles per hour, but when you look at the satellite and radar picture, it gives you an idea of the cloud cover we're seeing across the area, even seeing a few showers at times as well throughout the region. Let's get right to the current temperature. It is a pleasant evening, as you can see, but a bit on the breezy side. Here's a look at your weekend forecast. Your weekend forecast calling for an overnight low of 45 tonight with wind gusts to 30 miles per hour. On Saturday, we'll look for a daytime high of 67. Also wind gusts up to 30 miles per hour. Sunday, partly cloudy skies and a high of 66. Stick around, friends. I've got to look at your 10-day forecast live from Doomsday Hill, all coming up in a few minutes.
I can't wait for that. We're going to expect Tom to at least go back down to the bottom and run up to the top.
Yeah, right. We'll make sure we're rolling on that when it happens. All right, Tom?
He just laughs.
I know. He's like,
all right, Tom. Thanks very much. Speaking of Bloomsday, it was just 25 years ago that Lala Gerber had the idea of dressing up those iconic runners in Bloomsday t-shirts. This is down in Riverfront Park. So back then, she said she didn't even know if it was allowed or not, but the public kind of loved the idea.
Now with the running of the 45th Bloomsday, Lala also turns 45, and she says that she hopes to keep this tradition alive. Photojournalist Al Lozano met up with Gerber and her helpers and brings us their story. She says it's her contribution to Bloomsday.
I'm Lala Gerber. I've been dressing these statues for 25 years now. It's like a feeling, it's excitement, and you want to be part of it. And if people have shirts they don't want anymore, I ask them to donate them. Let's see how this one's gonna work. Maybe I go this arm first. So I told everybody, I'm like, save all the Bloomsday shirts you can, and next year I'm gonna dress the statues. I don't have permission, but I'm gonna do it anyways. All these statues represent an actual person. I use 40 shirts and I don't get them back. So every year I come up with 40 new shirts to keep doing this. Oh, we did have a kid's shirt. I couldn't even get a large past this guy's chin a minute ago. You know, everybody had a story for all the shirts, and it felt like it brought the statues to life. It also was a kind of a museum to all of the Bloomsdays of the past.